Congress is getting back to work today, and there is a big item on the agenda, another round of stimulus. That weekly $600 unemployment boost is going to run out in less than 2 weeks, and a lot of economists are warning that without a new round of help, the economy and the stock market will go spiraling. Let's dig into this now with Isaac Boltansky, Director of Policy Research at Compass Point. Good to see you, Isaac. I want to start, though, with reports that the Trump administration is actively working to block billions of dollars in federal funding for testing and for the CDC in whatever new stimulus comes out of Congress. What are you hearing, and what's the likelihood that that might actually happen?
So I think that the Trump administration is pushing for two things currently that they're going to be forced to drop if this bill is going to become law. The first is a cut in the funding that you mentioned before for testing in the CDC. There is simply no way that a bill will make it through the House without increased funding for testing and for the CDC. The other item is the payroll tax cut. This has been something that the president has had in his teeth for months. But there is no one else in D.C. who wants a payroll tax cut. It's viewed even by congressional Republicans as being the wrong policy response right now because it doesn't help the people who need it the most, which are the unemployed, and its stimulative benefits are questionable at this point in the economic cycle.
Isaac, ultimately, the payroll tax cut, why do you think it wouldn't be effective?
Well, I think that when we're having broader conversations about whether this is a supply issue or a demand issue, and in terms of coming back to a sense of normalcy, I think that there's some concern in the academic circles that incentivizing employers to hire more really won't do much when folks aren't going back to their normal activities as quickly. And Brian, I think this is something that's a broader theme that I've noticed in DC over the past few months. Policymakers have been forced to come to terms with the fact that reopening is not synonymous with recovery, right? And it was just a few months ago we were having this debate, hey, can President Trump reopen the economy? Well, no, not really, but can the state governors reopen the economy? Yeah, they can. But in reality, it's about you and me and the viewers and everyone else when we feel comfortable to go back out and start living our lives like we did before. And I think that's the most important point when policymakers are trying to cobble together what I think is going to be a massive stimulus bill.
Isaac, a lot of different sectors are vying for a piece of the pie here. We've seen the government give some help to the airlines and the cruise industry. We know the restaurants have been asking for help. Schools have been asking for help. Do you think we might see a particular sector get some much needed aid out of this stimulus that they perhaps maybe didn't in prior packages?
So I think that the answer to your question is yes. And specifically here, it's going to be leisure, hospitality, and travel. Those are the three areas that I believe are going to get a second crack at the PPP, the Paycheck Protection Program. Secretary Mnuchin has said that those industries have been the hardest hit and that they should get an opportunity to go back and get a second loan, which everyone knows can then be turned into a grant. Beyond that, Alexis, I think that we should really expect just more of the same from what we saw in phase 3. We should expect another round of recovery rebates. We should expect an extension of that supplementary unemployment insurance.
Hi, Jared Blickridge here. I just want to ask you about the wave of evictions that we're now seeing in certain markets that have only become available because they've been halted in so many areas. I believe they're still halted in New York. And then a potential wave of foreclosures down the road. Is there any talk of help for homeowners and renters in this next stimulus bill?
There's lots of talk about it, Jared. And when you look at the House Democratic bill, that $3 trillion HEROES Act, there was hundreds of billions of dollars in rental assistance and foreclosure prevention measures and things along those lines. We don't yet know what's going to be in the Senate GOP bill, right? That's the next thing that we have to watch. And then tomorrow we'll have Secretary Mnuchin meeting with the different caucuses. And so we're going to get more of a feel on those fronts. But I can tell you, DC is aware that without more assistance, we are facing an unparalleled rental cliff. We are facing real concerns on the other end of this once we get past the mortgage forbearance window, which, as you know, has a 12-month timeline from when the phase 3 bill was passed at the end of March.
You mentioned a moment ago, you think we're going to get another round of stimulus checks out of whatever package comes out of Congress. What are you hearing? I mean, the last time we had $1,200 checks going out to most people, of course, it was based on income. Might the income levels change? Might the overall amount of those checks change?
So, Alexis, I think that's the real point here is policymakers, I think, are committed to spending more money. There really aren't that many deficit hawks left on Capitol Hill to begin with, right? They're an endangered species. Furthermore, I think they recognize now is the time to spend money. The conversation at this point is how to appropriately target those subsidies. So an extra $600 a week for unemployment insurance, Republicans don't like that because they think that that disincentivizes a return to work. My call, I think that they actually extend that supplementary unemployment insurance, albeit at a lower level, somewhere around the $250 to $350 a week level. To your point on the recovery rebates, I think that they pull out the printer again and start sending out checks. I think that the amount will be the same, Alexis, but I think they're going to try to more narrowly target it. So before it was individuals earning under $75,000, and then it phased out above that. I think they'll just lower that income threshold a bit so that the low end of the economic spectrum still gets the primary amount of benefit.
Isaac, I got 30 seconds left. You know, what's the one obscure thing here, but important thing that the Democrats might get in this plan?
Yeah. So look, I think that I think it's obscure simply because it's considered a foregone conclusion. But Brian, there are estimates out there saying that state and local governments might have a budget deficit of somewhere in the neighborhood of $555 billion over the next 3 years. That's a huge hole caused by the fact that we shut down the government and tax revenues aren't coming in. So the thing that I think we should keep in mind, and especially my municipal investors and others, there will be a huge slug of money for states and municipalities. I think somewhere between $500 and $600 billion that's going to be part of this. It's not going to completely solve the issue for states and municipalities, but it will give them some breathing room.
All right, Isaac Boltansky, Director of Policy Research at Compass Point. Thanks so much for being with us.